Welcome to the Deep 404. Earlier this week, there were two strikes conducted by Ukraine upon Russia, which may come to have significance in the future. The first of these was a US ATACMS strike in the Bryansk region of Russia. This saw American-made ATACMS missiles be fired by the Ukrainians. President Biden had a few days before this given the approval for these weapons to be used in the most western areas, the Kursk, Bryansk areas of Russia. So in traditional Russian territory, not within the area of what was previously Lugansk, Donetsk Republic area, which is now considered Russian by the Russians, but actually in Russia. I don't have any good video of that. The second attack was one involving a number of UK Storm Shadow missiles in Kursk. Western media is reporting that up to 12 Storm Shadow missiles were launched in this attack. This implies that there were at least 6 Su-24s or F-16s involved in this strike. Storm Shadows are air-launched missiles, these long-range missiles. They have traditionally been launched by the Su-24 in this conflict. However, with F-16s now in Ukraine, and there are, the Danish and the Dutch have both confirmed that they have delivered their initial tranches of F-16s to Ukraine, and we know that there has been at least one already destroyed. So it may have been F-16s involved in this strike. So in this case, we have British Storm Shadow missiles launched by British, possibly delivered by American F-16s. These two strikes led to the strike that we saw, the retaliation that we saw from Russia. One moment here. Sorry, my monitor has just played up. Always the way. Hopefully that'll come back in just a second. This has led to the strike yesterday of the Oreshnik IRBM missile. Here we go. We've got this back now, I think. Let's just see if we can see this. Hopefully you can see this. I'll just replay this from yesterday. For those of you who are just listening, just watching the footage of the warheads from the Russian intermediate range ballistic missile bursting through the atmosphere and clouds and causing some sort of a plasma burst light show in the sky as they rain their multiple warheads down. This strike is something which is significant, and it is new. It's the first time that this type of weapon has been used in a conflict. The Russians have admitted that this was a test for them. President Putin has gone on to say that they will continue these tests in a military, in both a normal test environment, but in a combat environment as well, testing them in Ukraine. There's an update from yesterday where I had said that Dmitry Peskov, the Russian spokesperson, had said that there wasn't a warning given because warnings are not required to be given. This has since been updated, or I've seen updated information where he has been clarified that he had said that no warning needs to be given for these missiles. However, the Russians did provide the US with a 30-minute warning that they were going to launch this intermediate range ballistic missile, and that would be so as to not scare the Americans into thinking this was an intercontinental ballistic missile being fired at them. The intercontinental ballistic missiles travel further than the IRBMs. This one reportedly has a range of around 3,000 to 5,500 kilometers. So it's got a long range regardless. There has been on X someone showing this map here as a map showing possible sites for attack with this missile if the US and the UK continue to allow the long-range use of missiles into Russia. Now, whether or not this map is legitimate and any of these sites have actually been publicly discussed by anyone in the Russian military, regardless of that, all of those red dots are well within range of one of these missiles. Not only has Russia sort of retaliated to these attacks with the use of the Oreshnik missile, but there has been the confirmation of the update of doctrine from the Russian military with terms to their position on the use of nuclear weapons. What has happened with this talk coming from Joe Biden for the last couple of months, how he might or he might not allow long-range weapons. President Putin has announced previously that he would consider an attack by Ukraine using weapons that were supplied by another nation where those weapons were being used on Russian soil, would be considered as an attack by both parties. So theoretically now, what has been updated in the Russian doctrine would mean that under the doctrine, Russia could theoretically consider any major attack on its territory, even with conventional weapons, by a non-nuclear armed Ukraine, sufficient to trigger a nuclear response, because Ukraine is backed by a nuclear armed ally, in this case the United States. So this has been an escalation. The use of long-range missiles into Russia. A lot of people said that President Putin would do nothing, that he's just bluffing, it's not a red line, you can do what you like. I think we have seen a very clear signal coming back from Russia with the use of the Oreshnik missile to say that that is enough, that listen to us now, we are showing you what we can do. With this missile, we gave you 30 minutes warning, and there was nothing you could do. This strike was conducted onto a missile manufacturing plant within Dnipro, in sort of central southeastern Ukraine, and this type of attack is something which could expand, as we see on the map here, to any of these sites. For example, we now need to consider things like British aircraft carriers. They could be a target. And sitting in a port in the UK, they're within range of one of these hypersonic missiles. The missile reportedly took 15 minutes to travel from where it was launched somewhere around the Caspian Sea to get to Dnipro, which was a 500 to 600 mile or 1,000 kilometre range. That took 15 minutes. So even with 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour's warning, if the strike is to be performed on, say, an aircraft carrier, or if the chosen target was, for example, a US military base in Europe, the Ramstein air base in Germany, perhaps, even with that warning, you're not moving an aircraft carrier or an air base in 45 minutes or an hour. You would have time with that warning to evacuate people from the area, but whatever military equipment is there is going to be destroyed if it doesn't get itself off the ground or out of the way very quickly. So the other things that must be considered here too is that if France is to lend, say, its Scalp missiles, and they are used in those attacks, then France would enter into this arena too. The Hexagon Ballard in Paris, the headquarters of the French military, could become a target. And I know a lot of people talking about this are saying that this is an escalation which has taken us down close to the brink of nuclear war. Yes, that is true, but I don't think that we are close to that yet. I think watching the response, or watching how this message was sent from Russia to the West, was done in a calculated and measured way. It was a single strike of a single missile demonstrating the capabilities. There appear to have been only the use of kinetic warheads. That is, they were just solid metal warheads, no explosive capability on them, and certainly no nuclear capability, which that missile, the Oreshnik, could have carried. So the response from Putin has been measured, one strike to demonstrate capability. I think we would see a lot more of these type of strikes before Russia would find that it needed to move to a position of using nuclear weapons. Russia doesn't want to engage and use tactical nukes. A lot of the fighting is an area which Russia considers to be Russian, or is likely to, when this conflict is over, to have become Russian territory. So Russia doesn't want to be employing nuclear weapons in that area. So I don't think we're as close as some think we might be to that. In terms of the earlier attack, the one involving the Storm Shadow missiles, this was in the Kursk region, involved either Su-24s or F-16s and a number of Storm Shadows. What is interesting about that is that the target, the success of the attack seems unclear at this stage. Of course, there you can find Ukrainian reports saying it was a very successful attack. I have some footage here, which is reportedly, this is reportedly the attack with the Storm Shadow missiles hitting their target. Now, exactly what the target is, look, I don't know. Who was there? I don't know. All of the talk coming from the West is that this area of Kursk is infiltrated with tens of thousands of North Korean soldiers, that they're likely to be on the combat lines. And so there's talk that there are a whole heap of Korean generals here, and that's what the strike was possibly targeting. While this may be the case, there's no evidence whatsoever that I've seen to indicate that there are any North Koreans in the Kursk region or in Russia. No evidence to indicate that a Korean general was taken out by this strike. So at this stage, it seems as though the Americans and the Ukrainians felt that there was someone or something significant there to use up 12 of those very scarce Storm Shadow missiles. I've heard reports that there are 50 of them, perhaps, I think it is. Sorry, that may be ATACMS. Maybe there's 50 ATACMS and a limited number of Storm Shadow missiles. So using 12 of them in one go on something like this indicates that they believe there was something of significance there, but what it was doesn't seem to have been announced or revealed yet. But nevertheless, interesting that they are attacking in the Kursk region like this. I saw a lot of people suggesting the attack would be on the Crimean bridge, on the Kerch bridge over the Kerch Strait, because for some reason there is this great desire in Ukraine to destroy that bridge, even though there are multiple other supply lines for the Russians now, and it appears as though that bridge is now primarily just civilian use anyhow. So that wasn't done. We have reached a point where there is an escalation. That's definitely without question. Are we on the brink of nuclear war? I don't think so. A lot of the West is saying that Putin wants to do it and Putin will do it and he will fire nuclear weapons. I don't think that he will. I think that he is enabling them so that they have the ability to do so should they want to, because he doesn't know how far he'll be pushed. I guess he doesn't know how far the West will go, if they will continue, if they will authorise the use of long-range strikes beyond the Kursk region, deeper into Russia, into Moscow. And at that stage, then the Russians would want to be able to do whatever they need to protect themselves, just as the Americans or the Germans or the French or the UK would want to do whatever they can to protect themselves. But I think we've still got a little way to go. The use of this weapon is likely to increase, particularly if these ATACMS missile strikes continue. I've heard reports that President Putin has said that the Oreshnik missile is going into serial production now, as this was part of a test. It appears to have been a very successful test. And if they are going into production, then I would suggest that there is a thought or reasoning within the Kremlin that there would be need for them to use them in the future. So, look, I think we have probably seen Biden in his final days open Pandora's box a little wider. If we're lucky, we'll find a way to close it before we do get to the point of nuclear weapons being used. All right, thanks for that. I might do another show if I get a chance later today, but I look forward to talking to you again soon.